All right. Good morning.
Morning, everybody. Welcome to Canadian Mortgage Hangout TV. My name is Gordon McCallum. I'm coming to you live and in living color from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I'm the broker at First Foundation Mortgages, and I'm joined, as always, by the kilted one, Jackson Middleton in Regina. How are you today, Jackson?
I'm doing well.
Wonderful, wonderful. And our semi-regular guest, Paolo DePetta out of Vaughan in Ontario. How are things shaking in Vaughan?
Hey, Gordon, things are going good. How about you?
Yeah, good. I'm enjoying frigid temperatures that are getting frigider. Not to be confused with Frigidaire.
Yeah.
Every waking minute, actually, we're experiencing a bit of a drop in temperatures here today from our normally balmy minus 15. Scott Dawson, Vancouver's native son. How are you today?
I'm good.
Good.
We're cold here too.
I wanted to check.
Not as cold as there.
Okay, good. I wanted to check with you guys. None of you are on a hunger strike at the moment, are you?
I'm just eating fish soup.
Fish soup? How's that working for you?
No.
Yeah.
No. Let's not even go there. I'm just going to lose it.
Not recommended. All right. We'll stay away from fish soup on the show today.
Yeah,
but what we
fish
will
soup.
talk about, I wanted to keep it lively. So I've got a beef with Ed Clark. I don't know if you know who Ed Clark is, but Ed Clark is the CEO of Canadian Mortgage Bank. I don't know what I'm talking about. Isn't
it TD?
He's the
Yeah.
CEO of TD.
Toronto Dominion. Yeah,
That's how mad I am. I can't even see straight or think straight. But Ed's the CEO of TD Bank. He's an outspoken guy. He's a smart guy. He's a Harvard-educated guy. He's got lots of smarts in his head. But every once in a while, he says something that just makes me lose my mind. So we'll talk a little bit about Ed. And I want to know from brokers out there who are watching on hashtag CMHTV on Twitter or live and or recorded at CanadianMortgageHangout.tv. You can follow us there, watch it on YouTube, whether live or later. I want to know what your mortgage brokerage, and it doesn't matter who, and you don't even have to say who it is, but I'm curious to know what mortgage brokerages are doing to market their agents, and specifically their agents. Are agents across the country, are you getting any business back through the efforts of your brokerage, whether it's radio, whether it's hockey, whether it's online? Are the marketing efforts of your brokerage or your industry association, for that matter? I'm curious to know. Are the efforts resulting in new business for any agents out there? I'm really curious, or are you really focused on having to find your own deals? And guys, there was something else. What were we going to talk about? Maybe that was it.
You were going to talk about Jackson's mic?
My who?
Jackson's mic. I think he's typing or something. It's coming up.
Oh,
Jackson. Shame
I
on
will
you.
currently mute myself.
We also had the Real Estate Association of Edmonton yesterday had on their Outlook seminar for the Edmonton market. Now, I've never been at one of these things where there's been ever a negative outlook on the year. That's, I guess, one of the nice things about being in Edmonton, but I'm curious to know if any of you guys have had those or have them coming up, and what the outlook is for your individual market going forward this year. So why don't we start with that? Why don't we start with the outlook for our markets in the new year, what you're positive about, what you're concerned about. Jackson, why don't you start us off? What's the outlook for Regina and maybe Saskatchewan as a whole?
I've been actually, I just finished a meeting. Keith and I went with a really good realtor, and she's kind of slowed down. It seems that the market right now, everybody is just kind of looking around to see what's going to happen. I mean, last year at this time, weather, I mean, it could be minus 40 with a blizzard and people were out offering on houses. And it seems that, bad weather is kind of affecting it. But, I mean, as for the forecast, I mean, we're predicting up. I mean, the stuff that I'm reading is, I think the last national thing that was done by Royal LePage or something said 3% increase, and Montreal and Regina are the places to live. We're seeing up. I don't think it's going to be as active as it was last year, but I think the Saskatchewan market as a whole, I mean, we're economy, baby. We got resources and everything's driving here, and I think prices are going to be going up. I don't think it's going to go absolutely crazy, but I'm hoping for a balanced market.
Okay. All right. Any pressure on rents in your local market? Are people finding it difficult to find a place to rent?
Last year we had a rental vacancy rate of 0.6%, and it's actually gone up to 1%. So, I mean, there's a little bit more property on the market, but that's the real killer. I mean, in the last year, I've done 3 mortgages from people from Ontario moving to Regina, working in the resource sector, and I mean, these guys are renting places, and you can find a 2-bedroom apartment building and rent it out for $1,500 a month. It's ridiculous. I mean, 3-4 years ago, those were $600-700 a month. So, I mean, stuff's really gone up. And of course, as there's no vacancy, everything else just lifts, right? If the minimum to get into a place, if you can't rent it for cheap, the bottom price comes up, and that's where I think we've seen a lot of the lift on our market.
So potentially, if you were able to qualify as a property investor in a market like Regina, you would presumably do well on the. You certainly be able to rent it. Now, whether or not you can rent it for what you'd need to cash flow, I don't know. Paulo, forecast for Vaughan. Have you had any seminars out in that neck of the woods? Has CMHC done anything? Or CMH? Who are we? CMHC. Yeah. We're not, man. CMHTV and CMHC gets me mixed up all the time. Has CMHC done any forecasts or outlooks, or your local real estate association? Have they done anything like that out there yet?
I've received a couple of PDFs and presentations from local real estate. There's Trevor on here, which is the Toronto Real Estate Board, and their outlooks always seem to be positive. But I mean, the numbers for the past 4 months have actually been on the decline. We've seen volumes go down. We've seen prices go up. My sort of explanation for that is that the upper end of the market doesn't suffer usually as much as the lower end, and not as early. So we're seeing those average prices go up, but I think the volume's coming down, and I think prices are going to follow soon. And yeah, I've just been seeing a lot less activity on the A side of the business and on the B side of the business, and I've been seeing a lot more of the C private sort of side of the business. So I think we're going to be trending more in that direction, at least here. Actually, I was just looking at the chart that you posted up on your Google Plus page, and if you look at things like affordability, you were kind of in that discussion with that person on my Twitter wall there, and you were talking about how Calgary's got a great affordability rate, but if you look at Toronto, it's at 70.27. So there's a bit of a difference there. I mean, average income's not as high. I don't think rent will come up because I know people are struggling right now. So I don't think the outlook's too good over here, but I think it'll improve maybe within about 2 or 3 years. I think right now we're just at a level that's unsustainable, but I think you have to sort of catch up with salaries and all that other stuff.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Sometimes markets need to take a breather. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I always get a little bit concerned when I read in the media that people think a decrease in any market is a sign of trouble. I actually don't. I think it's a sign of a functioning market. Markets are supposed to go up and down based on supply and demand, and if people are paying too much for properties, they should take a break.
Exactly. I think the real trouble was that it got to the point that it's at right now. We're not in a troubled state right now. I think things are going to try to level off, but I think we were in trouble as it was just increasing out of control.
Sure, and that's why it stopped. So, and people will take a break for a few years and their incomes will catch up, or the property values will adjust, or something like a combination of those two things, and they'll be fine. It does, at a macro level, right? And these things are generalities. So are there some people who will find it difficult in the meantime? Yeah. And just like there are some people who profit enormously when things are going up. I guess you got to be prepared, and cash on hand is always a good way to be prepared for either circumstance, whether you want to take advantage of an opportunity or whether you need to cover your butt if you made a mistake. So one of the telling things, Paulo, about the Toronto market that came out of this Edmonton conference yesterday was that the percentage of condos sold as a percentage of the overall market in Edmonton last year was about 25%, whereas in Toronto it was over 50%. So you can understand why some hesitation about condo values and condo exposure for mortgage lenders is out there. I don't know that number for Vancouver, Scott, but
I think wasn't it posted on there on your slide? I remember kind of reading it and looking at it being. It was obviously a big skew. We're probably very similar.
And if you
similar to Toronto, I'm guessing. I don't have it in front of me, but
yeah, if you care, you can follow me on Twitter at Gordon McCallum and go back through my timeline. I think there's some information from the conference yesterday that you might find interesting. So, what's the forecast for Vancouver? Because I know you guys are in the newspaper all the time, and
yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with the rest of you guys across the country. I mean, we're definitely seeing. It's slowed down. It's flat here, but that doesn't mean there's no activity, right? I'm still working with first-time home buyers that are buying townhouses, buying condos. The market's still moving. My business has shifted a little bit, much like Paulo's. I do deal with a lot of self-employed borrowers as well. So we are definitely seeing with the changes with what's happened, going more towards almost shifting more towards a lot of more B business. That's just how my business is kind of evolving as well. So, but I mean, for the year ahead, I'm optimistic, right? There's always work. There's always work out there, right? There's always people that are going to need our services, and I just kind of keep pushing forward to be able to provide that.
Do you guys are you shifting any of your focus away from purchases and more towards refinances, renewals, and where would the refinance opportunities be in Vancouver when if equity's going away, that makes it tougher to refinance?
Definitely. I mean, there's a lot of people. I mean, if you've bought in Vancouver, especially a condo, right, in the last say 5 years, depending on location, right, location. There's not a lot of equity to do anything, and obviously with the changes. With the rules, there's really nothing. There's nothing we can do, anyways. But there is a lot of people that have owned homes for a number of years here that are sitting on a lot of equity, right? My business has shifted definitely. I mean, I am still doing purchases. What I've noticed on most of my purchase referrals usually come from realtors. I've noted obviously realtors are getting quieter. That's what I found, but I've also noticed that the good realtors that are marketing themselves properly and have a really a good business plan and that were busy before, they seem to be getting busier, and that's one thing I've noticed from a couple of my referral sources, that they're actually sending me more business because I'm guessing that other realtors are kind of just dropping out of the market and not producing as much, so there's more for the ones that are really serious to do it.
There was a saying, one of the speakers at the conference yesterday said, and I've heard it before, when the going gets tough, the tough take market share. So that's that's something to keep in mind. If you're still in the game and you're able to tough it out through the difficult times, you can actually increase your business, or certainly set yourself up for an increase when the market recovers. So that's always encouraging, and I've experienced that personally. It's not always easy, but I find that staying power is a good characteristic for sure if you can pull it off. So now I wanted to talk a little bit about brokerages, and you hear a little bit about brokerages doing some marketing at the national level. Mortgage Alliances on the radio, Dominion's on TV. Some of the other brokerages are doing some other things, either online or through social media, things like that. From your experience, guys, have you benefited personally, or do you know other brokers who benefited personally from the marketing and advertising that's being done by their brokerage firms? And have you experienced that yourselves?
I can jump in there first.
Yeah.
With Verico, I've only worked for Verico, so I can't speak for any of the other brokerages. Obviously,
okay.
You guys can chime in too. They don't do they're not doing like any type of national advertising campaign. But what I found with them is what's been great is the tools that they've been able to provide me for my business have helped my business, and that's because I've whatever I choose to use, right? But we're pretty much left on our own in how we want to market ourselves, right down to an individual agent. I like that. It suited my my plans and how I want to run my business, but it might not necessarily be for every broker out there.
Okay. All right. Has that been your experience, Paulo?
Actually, I'm with a small brokerage. It's actually just me and the broker. He was a one-man team before I joined them, and been working really well for me because I'm just the kind of person that likes to do all that sort of stuff himself. I come from an advertising background, so I have a lot of connections in the industry. They've been helping me out. I don't really think I would need that sort of thing, and I mean, I just don't think I really align with a lot of the other brokerages out there. And I'll just touch on Verico a bit. I was actually, when I did my mortgage brokerage course, I actually had the rep from Verico, Martin Marshall. Hey, Martin. He came to talk to me about Verico systems, and they're great. And I think if I ever did end up switching to a brokerage, it would be a Verico brokerage because they have a lot of really great tools. I just think advertising-wise, I don't really see the value in it. I mean, a lot of the times, there's a lot of money spent on ad budgets, and it's really to advertise the brand and not necessarily the actual agent themselves.
Okay. Now, what I wonder. Now, we don't have anybody from Mortgage or Mortgage Intelligence or Invis on the show today, but I'm curious to know what you guys think about some of their efforts. My understanding is that they've got some marketing programs, and one of them is through Kinetics that are, I think, going to generate some leads for the brokerage, but they won't get passed on to the individual agents. Have you heard anything like that? And that would seem to be somewhat controversial from my perspective. I wonder how the Invis and MI agents feel about it. Have you heard any word on the street about how people feel about that? Not at all, hey? Well, maybe we'll have to get somebody from Invis or MI on the show next week and give them a chance to respond, because I think it would be, I support the fact if you're going to be charging, especially a percentage of revenue, it might be tougher for the flat rate shops, the Vericos and the Axioms to reinvest a whole bunch of money in marketing unless they were to charge a little bit more. But for the brokerages that are charging a commission or a portion of your commission, to not reinvest in marketing, I think, is a mistake. But to do it without any expectation of results is maybe even a bigger mistake. And how you measure that, straight branding probably doesn't result in new business for the agents, but having a program or a campaign that drives leads, do you think that would be valuable? Would you take leads generated by others for you? Not at all, Paulo? You're shaking your head. You don't want new business?
I wouldn't because, well, no, it's not that I don't want new business. I mean, I think the biggest problem is it's really easy to go out there and find a bunch of people that'll bring you leads. Whether or not those leads are qualified or serious is a whole other thing.
Isn't that your job? Isn't that your job to test the lead?
That is. Absolutely. That's absolutely our job. But I mean, those leads are necessary. There's other ways to generate leads.
Aren't they all qualified?
Well, no, but that's a bit of a different situation, of course. But I mean, if you're going to look for leads for a business, I mean, a lot of the times they're really just shopping around, right?
Sure.
And it's not really guaranteed. So you're putting this money out, and you really have no. It's really hard to track the sort of percentage that you'll convert. 1 month you might have a great month. Month you might not. I focus a lot also promoting between brokerages when I do a lot of my C business or my private business. It's dealing with other brokers and other agents with deals they can't handle. So when I do that, I know I'll have a certain conversion rate. I have a certain sort of consistent rate with that. I've found that I can reasonably predict what my business is going to be like that way. With A business, I find it's a little bit tougher just because there's so much more competition. And I mean, we're not just competing against other brokers there. We're competing against banks that have multi-million-dollar budgets. And then, they just can walk in any time. With us, it's a little bit more difficult, right?
Okay, well, that's a good point, and I've heard that from the folks that get really good at the private lending world or the tougher deals. I have heard that they may be tougher deals to put together, but you also have less competition as a result, and people are probably less in a position to be able to shop you, right? Because they don't have as many options and they're relying on you to get them out of a pickle as opposed to being in a position of strength. So no, that's a very good point. And I'd be curious to know if more and more brokers are starting to look. Maybe you're going to end up with more competition as a result of this and some of these changes. But have you seen that yet?
I don't think I've seen a lot more competition. I've seen a lot more deals come in from brokers that just don't really know how to handle those sorts of deals. I think a lot of them are really focused on the A business, and when they get those sorts of deals, they'd rather pass them off than and make a smaller commission than to really have to deal with it and deal with the liability of it as well. I mean, there's a lot more paperwork that we need. There's a lot more qualification that we need to do to make sure that the deal can actually be done.
I'm going to jump in there and say I actually like that idea. I mean, to me, that just makes sense to me. I would much rather have somebody who's dedicated to it full time, who understands the game. It's a completely different game. I've tried. I've waded in the B waters, and I just end up dealing with B people who've got B problems, and I'm an A guy. I deal with A people. So I'm used to dealing with A problems, and now I'm dealing with B problems. It's a completely different game. I am not doing my client any service by handling a file that's out. And plus that, on a marketing side, I think it's ridiculous because the time it takes me to actually learn how to put the B deal together, whether or not I actually ever get it done, if I just turn around and start marketing for more A, I attract what I get. Like attracts like. If you like doing B business, you'll get more B business. Just do it. I think the problem with brokers is, oh, hey, do you do commercial? Oh, I could try it. Do you do rental? Yep. How about B? Yep. How about chip? Yep. I mean, I'm not saying we can't do all of them. I'm just saying, why don't we focus, if you really want to be smart about your marketing, target exactly what you want and get it. And make a relationship with someone like Paolo and do a referral on that. That just makes more sense in the marketing to me.
That's probably a good idea. And Paulo, since you're the only B guy on the panel, I think you're, well, actually Scott says he's doing some, but you can have the Ontario leads. Brokers watching this at home from the couch or in their office can send your B deals to Paulo in Ontario or Scott in BC. I'm looking at, actually interesting that you mentioned, Jackson, just to follow up to what you were talking about, highlights from CAMP's Fall 2012 Consumer and Industry Surveys. If you haven't seen this yet, folks, it's from CAMP. It's published, it was prepared by Merit's Research here, and it was published recently. I got an email about it. I'm sure you can find it on their site. But one of the things that came from that was the survey results. The question was, a mortgage broker would be good for ... And 68% of people surveyed said first-time home buyers. 56% of people, second highest number on the survey, said problematic financial situations. So look, the reason why we get a lot of tough leads is because people think that's what we do. And if you're Paulo, that's great news. If you're me and we don't do that, that means a lot of work because we got to sort through it. We got to figure out whether or not to refer it or just say no, hand it off, that kind of thing. So it becomes challenging. So there's still, for those of us who are focusing on the A business, there's still a consumer awareness issue that we have, which is the assumption a lot of people have, which is that mortgage brokers just deal with stuff that's broken, bad credit, no down payment, no job, just out of prison, you name it.
That and they have to pay us a lot of. That's a question I get a lot. Really common. If you're how do I get paid?
Yeah, you're probably right. Like it's fair to assume that if they think we've got them over a barrel because they're in a difficult financial situation, then that the fees are going to be charged accordingly. So you're right, Scott. I think that's a very good point. There's some other stuff here that was somewhat concerning from this survey. One was 52% of people thought a mortgage broker would be good for an expiring mortgage term. Now, I don't know if that's because their banker told them to go get a rate so they could match it, but some of that is for sure. Transferring mortgage to a new property, not so much. Only 36% of people surveyed said a mortgage broker would be good for dealing with someone in a healthy financial position. Ouch. That hurts. Ouch.
That does hurt a little bit, yeah.
And
I think the reputation of the industry is getting a lot better than it was, and I think we can all agree to that.
Yeah.
I think there was a bit of a rough period in like the 70s and 80s where it was really it left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, and I think by doing stuff like this, we're really raising the profile of the industry. So I think that's a good.
Well, I suppose so, and maybe that's why we do so well with first-time buyers, is they don't have all those preconceived notions unless they talk to mom and dad. Because I have had clients, first-time buyers who want to deal with us, they want to work with us, they're happy to work with us, and then all of a sudden they're getting referred to Betty at the credit union because mom and dad said, "No, you gotta go pay more," just because we've dealt with her for 30 years.
I'll jump in there. I've had the opposite. I've had first-time home buyers where their parents have actually worked at a bank and told them to use a broker.
Nice.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's seeing that one from the rooftops. That's good news,
So,
and
yeah.
I'm not surprised. We've even done mortgages for bank employees, which is always
I've done that as well.
yeah.
I did 4 mortgages for credit union employees when they renegotiated their bargaining. They got kicked out of the union, and then they lost their staff rate. So as a boycott, they came out, and I got 4 credit union employee mortgages. It was awesome.
Nice. If there are any bank employees or credit union employees secretly watching this, we won't tell anybody. But your business is always welcome here. We know you want the better deal and the better advice. The one thing that was most concerning, I looked at this survey, and a mortgage broker would be good for self-employed. Now, we know we're good for self-employed. We know that self-employed borrowers probably need us more than ever before in the history of the profession. Only 36% of people surveyed thought that a mortgage broker would be a good person to talk to if you're self-employed. That bothers me. That really bothers me. So we got some work to do, and we've got to make sure that we're getting the message out there, because obviously in some of those cases anyway, we're failing.
I have a feeling that stat's going to change by next year fairly quickly.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah,
it's tough. It's tough for people that are self-employed right now.
It is, yeah. So I don't know what the best way to get the message out is, but I know we got to be talking to the accountants. We got to be talking to people who do the books for these, even business coaches, I suspect. Anybody who will listen, who consults with business owners, get out and network with business owners. Let them know what's really going on, and I think there'll be business there for you. Paulo, what's up?
Well, just a quick question. I noticed you have the A&P on your little rider there.
Yeah.
Just kind of curious. I know that there was a question about that in the survey as well, and that was sort of covered in the mortgage broker news. What's your opinion of the designation? Like, there was a question about it being customer satisfaction. It was substantially higher. I can't remember the exact numbers, but you have it in front of you.
I will find that for you. It was customer satisfaction with a bank employee. Oh, that's a good one, Paul. I want to find it for you. Here we go. Mortgage broker channel position. Now, customer satisfaction with a 51% of mortgage broker customers are very satisfied with the service. Now, that is still way too low. 51%? Come on. We got to do better than that. Very satisfied. Now, that's very satisfied. Maybe another 35% were somewhat satisfied or whatever, which still gets us up to a good number. But provided by the mortgage professional versus 43% among those who dealt directly with a lending rep. And that's a statistically significant difference. That's about that's an 8% real difference, but it's that we're about 16% higher customer satisfaction rate than a bank rep, which is pretty good. Accredited mortgage professionals, so people with the AMP designation, among customers who identified their mortgage broker as an AMP, so some of them may not have even known, 59% were completely satisfied, as opposed to just 35% who said they did not deal with an AMP. So almost 60% versus.
That's what I was talking about. I'm a little worried about that stat because I've seen the survey and the question was worded in a sort of strange way. It said it would ask if they knew what an AMP was, and then there would be a yes or no or don't know. If they knew the person they dealt with was an AMP. If there was a yes, they were an AMP, no, they weren't an AMP, and not sure. I'm kind of curious where those not sures were sort of lumped, because I'm sure somebody who knew that they had an AMP would definitely be a little bit more of an educated client, probably be more inclined to fill out these types of surveys as well. I think those numbers may be skewed a little, not necessarily a lot, but I think there's a bit of play in there with the way a lot of those questions were worded and the sort of target of the survey.
Well, on the results here, and I don't know, and you're right, some of these surveys can be structured in a way to get an outcome that's desirable. I'm not accusing anybody of that, and I don't think that's the case here, but among those customers who identified their mortgage broker as an AMP, 59% were completely satisfied, compared to with just 35% among those who said they did not deal with an AMP. So it doesn't account for the unsure in the results here. But yeah, you're right. I'm curious to know, and maybe they didn't even take those into account because the people weren't sure. The good news is I think I'm a supporter of having a designation and promoting it and improving it and having the highest standard possible for folks, and making that aspirational for brokers to get it. Is there room for improvement in the current designation? Yes. Are the incentives structured so that those improvements will be made? Maybe not. So I'd like to see it really mean something like some of the other professional designations out there. I think we're getting there. It's going to take a lot of support and a lot of work to really get it to be where it needs to be. But yeah, that's my take on it. I don't think we have time for Ed Clark today, you guys. I don't want to go on this too long, but I will just say this. One of the things that drove me nuts, if you want to look it up, it's on the Financial Post. There's an article about interest rates being a major risk for the banking industry. And the Financial Post, the way they wrote it, and the way Ed Clark says it, is that low rates are putting pressure on the banks and their profit margins. Now, here's the thing. It's not the low rate itself that's causing pressure on the banking industry or their profits. It's competition. At the end of the day, banks make money on their spread, so they're borrowing it for less too, and they're lending it for less. It's not like they're borrowing it for the same amount they were borrowing it for 3 years ago and having to lend at a lower rate. The spreads move like this together. What the bank and what Ed Clark isn't saying, but what the truth is mortgage brokers have brought competition to the banking industry for mortgages, and we've driven down the prices because our lenders have lower costs than they do. They don't have branches on every corner. And Ed Clark and TD Bank has a cost problem, not a revenue problem. They don't like to compete. They miss the days of 5 banks all offering the same rate, which is as close to posted as they could get. They miss that. And Ed Clark, based on all the other articles, if you want to do a Google search about Ed Clark, look up Ed Clark and read some of the stuff he's written, which is basically, I can't help myself. I need the government to intervene to save me from having to compete, and to save me from having to protect it, to give a good deal to the consumer. At the end of the day, Ed Clark doesn't care about the consumer. He cares about his margins, which is fine. He's got a responsibility to his shareholders and to his bank, and he's got to justify his $11.3 million salary. But at the end of the day, he doesn't care about the consumer. And now it's going to come down to, they're going to compete on rates by charging you more for your checking account fees and your savings account fees and all your other fees, and they're going to get you into credit cards instead of lines of credit. It drives me crazy to hear a guy like this and so arrogant, because at the end of the day, the consumer loses. If we go back to that system where there's only 5 banks competing for your mortgage business, the consumer will lose. So congratulations to mortgage brokers out there. Keep up the good fight. Consumer wins because we're in the game, and competition is a good thing. Don't ever let anybody tell you different. That's all I got to say about Ed Clark.
Mind if I chime in a little on Ed Clark as well?
Sure.
I'll keep it really short. First, just want to talk about fees at the banks. When the spreads get a little bit better for them, I'm pretty sure those fees won't be coming down. So,
Yeah.
you really got to appreciate the kind of people like us that are out there that are really working hard for the consumer. I mean,
Yeah.
he's there to really, touch on help out his investors, right? He has a fiduciary duty to them to generate the most profit that he can. That's his job. It's not to give us the lowest rates, and it's not to give us the lowest fees. So you really got to look out for that. And I actually just this morning posted a blog post about this exact thing. I mean, it's really just about trust and like who you trust and how you determine who you trust. And if you want, you can check that out on my website. It should be in the little rider right there. And it's actually the very, very latest post, and it talks exactly about this.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Well, keep up the good fight, you guys, and let's really take it to them in 2013. And who knows? Maybe someday brokers will be in the checking account business too, and we'll give Mr. Clark really something to worry about. You guys have a good one.
That's it, guys. Have a good week.
Yeah. Take care.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys. See you later. All right.